Hey guys, good morning. Sean from The Good Dog. A little bit of a chilly LA morning here. It's still pretty out, but chilly. Gotta rock that sweatshirt on days like this. And mandals. Sorry. Um, so I did this little series on Instagram stories the other day, talking about saying yes first. And I'll get into exactly what I mean by that. But it was on Instagram stories, which are really cool, and it's a different format. It kind of brings out different stuff, which is cool. The downside of Instagram stories is that after 24 hours, it's gone. So if you saw it, cool. If you want to revisit it, not cool because you can't see it. And if you didn't see it, tough. You don't get to see it at all because it's gone. So I think this idea is important enough to want to actually put it on a video where it's captured and we can actually revisit it, or you can revisit it. And that's basically developing the skill set to say yes to ideas first. And I don't mean like a race, like who can say yes first. I mean saying yes to ideas first, making it a habit, creating a pattern, a mental habit where you say yes to ideas before you say no. Before you even raise an eyebrow, before you even before you do anything subtle or even something overt, you learn to say, huh, that's kind of cool, or wow, interesting, I hadn't thought about that, or what could we do with that? Or, saying yes, you don't have to say yes, like literally, but giving something the green light for it, an idea, to form and start to get some air is the difference oftentimes between an idea taking flight and turning into something, or an idea just crashing and burning. Ideas are super duper vulnerable, and the people that hatch them are super vulnerable when they're hatching them. So it's just one of those things that it's kind of like this really fragile moment. Somebody shares an idea, and then if it's not met with some kind, unless the person's just unstoppable, unless the person's just I don't care what the world thinks, it's not most of us. Most of us, if we're met with some kind of slight well, that's interesting, right? Which is very different than that's interesting, or that's pretty crazy, or I've never heard that done before, or boy, would that be a lot of work, or sure you could do that, or I'm sure somebody's already done that if it's a good idea. So whether it's you who have been programmed through friends, family, society, whatever, that shuts your own ideas down, which a ton of us do. A ton of us don't have that ironclad self-trust that just busts through anything. A ton of us will have an idea and then shut it down ourselves because we don't believe in ourselves. We haven't been taught to believe in ourselves. We haven't been taught to think big. We haven't been taught to dream big. We haven't been taught to take risks and chances and bet on ourselves and maybe step somewhere where we're not sure where the next step is. So a lot of us put the kibosh on ideas that could turn into something great on our own. Conversely, there's the other side of it, which are friends, family, people that might have taught you not to trust yourself, but the people that you might have in your inner circle, or even co-workers or things like that, and that you might share an idea with, and then you get that response that's not the awesome response, and you immediately feel vulnerable, stupid, silly, something like that, and you shut it down and it goes away. So whether it's us or other people in our lives, we have to be so careful about how we nurture ideas when they're first born, when they're first hatched, in order to give them some life and give them some air to breathe. Because most ideas when they're first born or hatched aren't really fully developed, just like us. They're kind of partial. They may have a seed of greatness, and they may have a bunch of silliness. They may have 1% of awesomeness and 99% that ain't gonna work. But if they're given enough time to breathe and mind time between you and maybe somebody else, and are allowed to bounce around and like, what do you think? Well, how about this? And all of a sudden it starts to change, and somebody else's perspective goes, well, that's a really cool idea. What if you did this with it? And then you go, well, oh my God, I didn't even think about that. We could do that, and then we could do this, this, and this along with it. And now that little seed that was kind of cockamamie harebrained has turned into something like, whoa, that's something really cool. That's something that actually has a chance. That's something that's got like a real shot at being something interesting or valuable or impactful, something like that. So for me, like I said on Instagram stories, you know, Laura being business partner with me, she's been fantastic at saying yes first. She's always been fantastic at saying, like, it doesn't matter what like crazy thing I come up with, she's like, that's cool, right? She'll look, she's programmed herself and patterned herself and created the mental muscles to where the first thing she looks for is the cool piece of it. Not the parts that won't work, but the cool pieces of it, the pieces of it that might work, or the seed of cool, great, whatever that's in it. She's really trained herself to do that. So what it's allowed is allowed me to feel really safe to pull out the like craziest stuff and go like, what do you think of this? To really be vulnerable. It's allowed me to be really vulnerable and take chances on ideas that I would probably have kept to myself. So that's the value of having somebody in your life that actually allows that to transpire in you, allows you to take chances, allows you to share these ideas and these risks. I've had other people in my life as well, like Steve K. Big shout out to Steve K. if he happens to watch this. Steve K's a musical engineer and a musician and one of the nicest people I know. I've worked on a ton of records with him back when I was in band Orgone, and the thing about Steve was Steve always said yes. Didn't matter, like we could be like working on a, you know, we did, you know, he was the engineer, but I would sit with him, you know, on some of the Orgone stuff, and we would like talk about ideas and like, what about this and what about that? And we were also in a band together, and so I had multiple opportunities with Steve to talk about ideas and talk about and suggest things, and like I'm looking for a sound and I'm trying to make this happen, and I'm like, Steve, what about, and his response was always excited and like, yeah, let's try that. And maybe 80, 85, 90% of the time it didn't work, but 10% of the time we came up with something really, really cool, all because Steve said yes. And that dynamic of Steve saying yes allowed me to feel safe enough to put those ideas out there where I typically wouldn't have done it. Same thing goes for bass player Dale, Duck Dale, who was in Orgone with me for a long stretch. Dale was another person that always had the tendency to say yes first to ideas. Always. And so me and him came up with some of what I feel are some of the best like grooves and pockets and ideas for some of the early Orgone records, because Dale was always like, yeah, oh, that's cool. And of course, what does that make you feel when somebody says that? You're like, cool, let's try this. And like you explore. So basically, it's all of these people with these attitudes that give an idea room to grow, breathe, develop, and become something. Tim, the other bass player in Orgone, early days, same thing. Tim was always very open to stuff, and so he encouraged and allowed me to feel safe to like try things. Doesn't mean he didn't have an opinion, doesn't mean he didn't say that sucks. It just means that his default was like, yeah, let's give it a shot. And same thing goes for Jeff Gelman. I've talked with Jeff, and me and Laura have talked with Jeff, being business partners with Jeff, about oodles of ideas for dog training or workshops or seminars. I mean, that's how T3 came to pass. Really like just throwing around ideas. You know, I can't tell you how many ideas Jeff and me and Laura have come up with that we've all been like, yeah, and then they haven't worked. They've never like actually launched, or they've never like taken off, or we've decided, it wasn't as good as we thought. But there's a few that have. And I always love that about Jeff. I always appreciate that about Jeff, that there's a real optimism and there's a real default of like, yeah, let's try that. It's a very childlike quality. And and I just so appreciate that of the people that I've had in my life that have been that way, because of what it's allowed me to do and how it's allowed me to kind of take chances and find my best self and my best ideas. And a lot of things, to be honest, like, it's kind of sad, but a lot of things, like, if I didn't have people like that, I may not have ever shared any of those ideas. I may not, you know, like T3 might not have existed, or a lot of these like grooves in Orgone's records early on might not have been what they are, and TGD would likely not be what it is and the way it is, and all this stuff. So I just want to talk. I'm doing a lot of it, but I don't want to just talk. I just want to remind you guys about the power of saying yes to ideas first before you say no. If you guys can get in the habit of being that for yourself and for other people in your life, man, and if you can search out people that'll do the same thing for you, man, the things that you can do with people that will say yes first and give an idea the moment it needs to breathe, the moment it needs to like bounce around, the moment it needs to have other minds on it, other visions, other opinions and perspectives, in order to actually like grow and get legs and take flight and turn into something that's like, holy crap, this is fabulous. Man, if you can do that, if you can become that for yourself, for others, and then bring others in your life and that do the same, and really like wrap your head around that's a thing, and that it's a thing to be cultivated, that it's a thing that doesn't just happen like, oh, they're really like, no, look for people like that and look to create it in yourself. And if you can become somebody who says yes first and surround yourself with people that say yes first, you could be shocked at what you could create. And conversely, if you surround yourself with yourself or others that don't, oodles of fantastic ideas are going to die on the vine. They're never going to see the light of day, and amazing stuff that you might have created, you might never create. And it's so sad. It's such a bummer. So practice, guys. Practice, practice, practice. Develop that muscle to say yes to ideas first. Even if they're crazy, say yes first. Give it some time. Give it a little air to breathe, and then see where it goes. You can always say no later. You can always put it in the trash bin later. There's no like penalties for saying yes, you know, like, unless they say like, let's jump off the mountain. Like, think about that. You know, don't do that straight away, but there's no penalty typically for saying yes to ideas, right? So let's practice that and see what you can get out of it. I'm telling you, you do this, you can change some things in your life in a pretty dramatic form, pretty dramatic fashion. So hope that makes sense, guys. I want that good stuff for you guys. I want you to be able to pull that great stuff out of yourself and out of others. Like, that's what we're here for. Let's lift each other up. Let's celebrate this stuff. Man, these ideas, they're what makes the world go round. Don't kill them. Don't suffocate them before they have a chance to go, okay? All right, Sean from the Good Dog. Let me know what you think. Hope you guys are good. Okay.